And here we go. Hello. Good morning, and of course, welcome to Gospel Baptist Church. Welcome, Wesley. And we are here today. We are studying, of course, world religions. Yes, last week we studied the religion of Islam and learned a lot of things about Islam itself. Today we are, of course, studying about Hinduism. Hinduism is one of the world's oldest religions, with millions of followers primarily in India and Nepal. As Christians, it's important to approach learning about other faiths with respect, curiosity, and compassion, seeking to understand our neighbors and share Christ's love. At this present time, it is believed that there are 1.2 billion people currently practicing Hinduism. And like I mentioned last week, my grandparents, of course, my grandfather who founded this church, they were missionaries. And one of the important things about when you go to another country to be a witness, to give the gospel of Christ, you can't go with the mentality that I am right, you are wrong, because you're not going to win anybody. You won't win a soul that way because it'll offend people. You have to be interested in them and understand what they believe and why they believe it. So the one question is, of course, what is Hinduism? Hinduism is a complex and diverse religious tradition that encompasses a variety of beliefs and practices. It is not a single unified religion, but a collection of philosophies, rituals, and cultural traditions. Hinduism teaches about a cycle of birth, death, and rebirth as in reincarnation, and the ultimate goal is to achieve liberation, moksha, from this cycle. Now, there are different aspects of Hinduism, different sects, if you will, not aspects, but sects, different divisions. You have the Saivism, probably the oldest of all sects with its roots in prehistoric traditions of the subcontinent of India. Followers of Saivism worship Lord Shiva as their chief deity and regard him as Ishvara, or Brahman. They all acknowledge Shiva as the supreme self, but prescribe different beliefs, methods, and practices for liberation, which we'll get to in a moment. We also have Vaishnavism. Currently, the most popular sect of Hinduism with largest following, they consider Vishnu, Narayana, and Krishna as the supreme self and worship their numerous aspects. Then you have Shaktism. Followers of this sect worship Mother Goddess, or Shakti, and her numerous aspects as the highest supreme deity. They believe that Shakti is supreme, eternal, and independent, who is both material and instrumental causes of creation, with the self, or Ishvara, acting as passive witness in the background. Then we have Tantrism. Following of Tantra may worship either Shiva or Vishnu or other or their aspects. They however follow unconventional methods of worship, even very controversial ones known as left-handed methods, Vamakara, to achieve liberation. Most of these practices are kept as closely guarded secrets from the general public because of their controversial nature, which can be sacrifices and everything else you can imagine. And then, of course, number 5 is the popular religion. A vast majority of Hindus do not belong to any sect. They worship numerous gods and goddesses and make them offerings. They may have personal gods of their choice, but worship other deities also with equal fervor and celebrate all important festivals. I thought, well, that's very interesting because, a lot of people, of course, and a lot of people who know nothing about Hinduism, think of it as just one religion, but it is an all-encompassing a variety of different religions. In fact, if you go to India, while most people speak Hindi, they also have a lot of local languages. My grandfather could speak fluent Hindi, but he also understood Bengali as well as Punjabi. And there's lots of smaller languages, like in the South, they speak something completely different, even though they all do understand Hindi. But with that, it's also, depending on the region, is the type of gods you worship, the type of different rituals that you perform. You see a lot of times when you see Indians, sometimes you'll see, like especially with the Sikhs, they'll see the Sikhs will wear the hats. the long turban-like hats. Sometimes you'll see with a red dot on the forehead, and that is basically their sect, kind of how they worship and whatnot. Now, one of the questions that I wanted to learn is just what does Hinduism, what do they feel about heaven? In Hinduism, heaven is called Svarga, a place where souls experience joy, pleasure, and the results of their good deeds, the punya, during their journey through the cycle of birth and rebirth, samsara. It is inhabited by devas, sages, and virtuous souls, and is ruled by Indra, the king of heaven, with celestial pleasures and music, free from earthly suffering, aging, or death. However, their stay is only temporary. And once their accumulated merit is exhausted, the souls return to the cycle of reincarnation. So when someone dies, they said, depending on how much merit they have earned on earth, they'll spend a certain amount of time in this heaven of theirs, and then they're returned to the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. While heaven is a reward for virtuous living, it is not the ultimate goal in Hinduism. The highest aim is moksha, liberation from the cycle of birth and death, where the soul merges with Brahman, the ultimate reality. Heavenly life is considered a temporary pleasure that can distract from spiritual progress and true fulfillment. It comes from the attaining self-realization and freedom from samsara. Then, of course, the question that I wanted to ask next, okay, what is liberation? What do they mean by what is liberation? And so I pulled that up. And it says, in Hinduism, liberation, moksha, as I mentioned, is the ultimate goal of spiritual existence, signifying freedom from the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, samsara. The state of liberation is achieved through various paths, including knowledge, devotion, and disciplined practice. It emphasizes the realization of one's true nature and unity with the divine, leading to the cessation of suffering and ignorance. Achieving liberation is considered the highest purpose of life in Hinduism, leading to eternal bliss and unity with Brahman, the ultimate reality. Liberation can be pursued through different yogas, including Jnana Yoga, which is knowledge, Bhakti Yoga, which is devotion, and Karma Yoga, which is action. In Jnana Yoga, liberation is attained by discerning the difference between eternal self, the Atman, and the temporary physical world. It's like, wow, that's complex. It's a lot of rituals, and depending on, like I said, where you are, you have different rituals, different way you have to live your life, different diets you have to eat. And because they believe in reincarnation, that's why in a lot of places, like for example, in some places of India, monkeys are seen as holy. And so no monkeys are destroyed. Even if they're a nuisance or cause problems, they cannot be destroyed. Same thing with cows. In some regions, cows are considered sacred because that could be a reincarnated relative or a friend or family member, what have you. Grandpa used to, I don't remember the joke he used to have, but he used to make a joke about that. But you can't, in some places they don't eat meat at all. Everything is vegetarian because of that. But, it's this idea that there is no sense of eternal glory, eternal peace, that it's only temporary, and that you have to earn, you have to, get merit to even achieve that. And so that was very interesting, all these works they have to do. Then I wanted to ask, well, what is Brahman? Unity with Brahman signifies the ultimate goal of spiritual practice, representing the aspiration of oneness with the supreme reality. It highlights the importance of transcending individual existence to experience the profound interconnectedness with all that is divine. The concept emphasizes the importance of spiritual union, enlightenment, self-realization, and transcendence, aiming for deep spiritual fulfillment and understanding. In the context of Advaita Vedanta, Brahman and Atman, of course, talking about yourself, are seen as deeply interconnected, with Brahman being the ultimate reality and Atman the individual self. This philosophy challenges the conventional perception of duality, urging individuals to look beyond the physical world to recognize a singular, unchanging reality. The pursuit of unity with Brahman is the central theme in Hindu philosophy, particularly in the Upanishads, where it describes as the ultimate cause of the universe, as the source from which all forms existence arise. Understanding this relationship is key to realizing one's true nature and the essence of existence itself. You think about it, it's trying to summarize or make it simple. You think about it as like a river being the self and Brahman being the ocean. And the water in the river, or I'll say the river being the method, the water in the river being the self, and the ocean being you returning to the ultimate source. That's like I said, well, it's because when I was reading it, it was like my brain was exploding because I'm like, I don't understand this. But then when I read that, it makes a little more sense as far as that goes. The key beliefs for Hindus is they believe in many gods and goddesses, each representing different aspects of the divine. Among the most prominent are Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. Hinduism teaches that actions, and called karma, in this life affects future lives, and the soul is reborn until it reaches liberation, which we just discussed. The scriptures, it's important Hindu texts include the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad, the Gita, and the Ramayana. And when it comes to worship, Hindus worship can take place in temples or at home, and often includes rituals, prayers, and offerings to deities. You know, Hindus, like I said, you know, when you're going to a different country, you're going somewhere, it's always good, instead of looking at how everybody is different, to find something in common. And they said one thing that Christians and Hindus also value is kindness, respect, and seek truth. They are interested. They want to learn. And that's, you know, one thing like with Paul, like talking about last week when Paul stood on, or the week before, when Paul was standing on the mountain and he was talking to the different believers in Athens about all the different gods that they had, and they had even a statue for the unknown God. You know, when you understand these people are interested in finding something new. And that's when it's a great way to offer the gospel. Because you think about it, a life where you just keep repeating the cycle. Think about that Groundhog Day, where every day began the same, and you just keep repeating that same cycle and over again until you get whatever is needed right. That's kind of what they believe is this great cycle that just doesn't end until you finally find the revelation that you needed. But with Christianity, the belief in Jesus, one, it's not about your merit that gets you to heaven. It's your faith in Christ. It's not about you achieving, you know, getting all these good deeds. You don't have to earn anything because Christ paid it all. It's about just putting your faith in the Lord. But it gives you a starting point to have a discussion because they're interested. You know, that's the thing about polytheism. They're always interested in knowing because they might be thinking, maybe I've left out a God. You know, and so, well, hey, I can declare to you this unknown God that you don't know. Let me talk to you about this Jesus Christ. There is a song, and I was thinking about it this morning, and I forgot to get the name out, but it was a song that I will follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. That was written by an Indian man who basically was formerly a Hindu, and he converted to Christianity. And he, of course, talks about in his biography about his life that how, you know, gaining this commitment, you know, really put all the puzzle pieces together in his life. And he made this decision, even though his family was against it, his parents were against it. He said even relatives tried to have him murdered because of his commitment to the Lord. And he said he declared that once he knew who Jesus was, he couldn't follow any other deity. He had to follow Christ. And then he would later write the song, I have decided to follow Jesus. And that concludes today's lesson on Hinduism.